What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so in this particular video, this is a video request from one of my subscribers. They wanted me to do a video as to who I believe was the better coach between Byron Scott and Flip Saunders. And this one's going to be kind of difficult because neither one of them to me was, well, neither one of them are what I would say is a coach that, when you think about the great coaches of all times, they jump out at you. I do believe that they're two of the most respected and well-liked coaches in recent history by players. That's something I definitely believe. Sorry, I'm having some issues with my throat. You know, you talk a lot sometimes, man. You can have some issues with your throat and shit. But this is a difficult one. Byron Scott, of course, played most of his NBA career with the LA Lakers. I believe he was drafted back in 1983. I think he came out of Arizona State, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Arizona State, where he went there from 1979 to 1983. Played for the Lakers from 83 to 1992. No, 93, excuse me. So he played 10 years with the Lakers. Then he played 2 seasons with the Pacers from 1993 to 1995. Played 1 season in Vancouver. I think that might have been their inaugural season, 95-96. Of course, they're the Memphis Grizzlies now. And then he played 1 more year. He went back to LA, but didn't play much. Only played in he played, but didn't start, I should say. 79 games, only 8 starts, only 18 minutes a night. And that was it for his career. He appeared in over 1,000 contests and averaged 14 points a game. His best season scoring-wise was 87-88 when he averaged 21.7 points per game. So Byron Scott could play. Flip Saunders, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he ever played in the NBA. Although he was a star player in high school in Ohio, I believe it was. He's from Cleveland, Ohio. His senior year, 1973, he was named Ohio's Class A high school basketball player of the year, leading the state in scoring, averaging 32 points a game. At the University of Minnesota, he started 101 of 103 games, and as a senior team with Ray Williams, Michael Thompson, Kevin McHale, and Osborne Lockhart. So he was a high school star, but he's known more for his for his coaching career. Now, Byron Scott retired after that stint with the Lakers in 1998, and he spent 2 years, I believe, as a scout. I believe it was with the Pacers. And then in 2000, just 2 years after his retirement, he became the head coach of the then New Jersey Nets. And the first year was pretty bad. And then, of course, I think 2001 is when they acquired Jason Kidd. And then they had the great turnaround where they won 52 games that year. Went to the NBA Finals. 2003, they went to the Finals. 49-33 record. So I think, personally, in my opinion, Byron Scott overachieved with the New Jersey Nets. Even though they didn't win a championship, to go to the Finals back-to-back at that time with that team, because if you remember, it was sort of thought at that time that after Allen Iverson's run with 2001 with that Sixers team, the prevailing general consensus was that AI was not done going to the finals. He was only 25 years old, the league MVP. You thought at least he would go to the finals maybe at least two more times, maybe more. So for him never to go back to the finals was a little bit of a surprise because nobody saw that Nets team doing that. Then of course you also had Paul Pierce in the Boston Celtics, and then unfortunately for the Nets, that's when you saw the rise of the Detroit Pistons team. Then you saw the rise, of course, of Miami. So the Nets' run was a little bit short-lived too, as far as being at the top of the Eastern Conference. After 2003, 2004, in the 2003-2004 season, after a 22-20 start, Byron Scott was fired, and then the next season he was hired as a coach of the New Orleans. I think they were the New Orleans Hornets at the time. First year they only went 18-64. The second year there was a marked improvement, 38-44, 39-43, 2006-2007. Then they became the New Orleans Hornets because they went back to New Orleans because of the fact that they were out playing in Oklahoma, remember correct, because of the damage done by Hurricane Katrina. So 2007, 2008, they went back to New Orleans. That year they won 56 games and then 49 games the next year. But then 9 games into the 2009-2010 season, he was fired. Went to Cleveland, but this was after the departure of LeBron James to go to Miami. They went 19-63, 21-45. Next year, 24-58. And then Byron Scott came to the Lakers in 2014-15, 21-51, then 17-65. So for his career as a coach, he only has a 41% win percentage, 454 wins, 647 losses in the playoffs. So he does have a winning record of 33-24. So the years he goes to the playoffs, when he has the talent, he wins. This is my assessment of Byron Scott. I think he's a very good coach, quite honestly. I think he's a very good coach. This is why I always say sometimes your record does not belie how good a coach you are. You have to keep in mind that Byron Scott is seen as a guy that will, to me, stabilize your franchise. He's one of these coaches, I think, that is very good at coaching. He's very good at, when he has the talent, getting you from point B to point C. But the perception is, since he lost those NBA Finals 4-0, 4-2, though you do got to consider that those are Lakers and Spurs, you question whether or not he's a championship level coach, but he is a coach that when he has the talent, he can at least get you to the playoffs and sometimes have deep playoff runs. But you got to look at something here, though. Oftentimes he's been coaching teams that just didn't have talent, man. Like, by the time he became head coach of the Lakers, 2014, this was right after Kobe, I think, ruptured his Achilles. This is when Pau Gasol was dealt away. That championship Lakers team was long gone. You had a lot of young guys coming in. I think at the time you had like D'Angelo Russell, Swaggy P. I think he even had, what's the guy name? The guy that plays with the Pelicans now. His name eludes me right this moment. But you had all these young guys coming in. I think Byron Scott, if I remember correctly, he was more comfortable with veterans or established players. So when you consider that, um, you know, a lot of these teams when he got there, they didn't really have the best teams. They were in competitive divisions and conferences. I think he did okay. You know what I'm saying? Not a great coach, but I think he was a good coach that got a bad rap toward the end of his career, of his coaching career, and he hasn't coached since 2015-16. Flip Saunders, to me, naturally in my mind, I want to say he's a better coach than Byron Scott. Byron Scott did go to 2 NBA Finals as a head coach, but when I look at the job that Flip did in Minnesota, when you look at how lacking of talent he was for the most part with those teams, you look at the development of Kevin Garnett under Flip Saunders. He loved Flip Saunders. He was the coach there from the get-go. I think he was general manager of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then he ultimately added being the coach to his coaching duties. 20-42 his first year. Then they went almost 500 his next year. They went to playoffs that year. Yes, they didn't do very well. But considering how young that team was, and they went to the playoffs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. 8 years in a row. From 1996 to 2004. Yes, Kevin Garnett did not win. Yes, that's true. He didn't win by himself. He should have did a little bit better. You could argue that, you know. Garnett, to me, people got to remember, Garnett is not the same type of dominant player that a Shaq is, or a Moses Malone, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know, physically he wasn't that guy. Mentally he was, you know, but you know, and he could affect the game on a lot of different levels. But Garnett needs a little. To me, he always needed more help than what he had. But when you consider how talented and how deep the Western Conference was, I think they did pretty good, man. The first year, 20-42, he came in after 20 games. I think they were 6-14. I think I remember reading just now when he came in and coached the team. So 20-42, but the next year 40-42, 45-37, 25-25 to 50 game season, 50-32, 47-35, 50-32, 51-31. The year that he had a real squad around 58-24. I don't think that's bad, man. I don't think that's bad at all. The next year, remember Sprewell said $29 million wasn't enough to feed his family. A lot of those guys left the team. They went 25-26, and he was fired. When I look back at it, man, for some reason, I just thought that the Timberwolves were worse than this. You know what I'm saying? For some reason, I always had in my head that the Timberwolves were winning like 30 games. But I didn't realize they were this competitive every year. So, you know what, man? I'm really reevaluating Flip Saunders in real time here. For some reason, I always thought that the other years, except for that 2003-2004 year when they went to the conference finals and lost to the Lakers, for some reason in my mind, I'm always thinking that they went like 30, 52, 35, 47. No, they were really competitive. Then Flips goes to the Detroit Pistons. In his first year there, they won 64 games. They won 64 games. I think that's the last year Ben Wallace was there too. They lost in the conference finals. 3 years in a row under Flip, the Pistons go to the conference finals. Even when the media lies and say, oh, the Pistons were knocked out by LeBron James. No. The very next year after they lost in that conference finals to the Cavaliers, when the Cavaliers lose in the second round, guess what? Flip Saunders takes a 59-23 Detroit Pistons team to the conference finals, where ultimately they lose to the Boston Celtics. Then Flip goes to Washington. Nobody can turn Washington around. 26 and 56, 23 and 59, then 2 and 15, fired. Now, to me, I think that was just a really bad time to go to Washington. I think that's when Gilbert Arenas started having his injuries, and you had the gun incident, and that was just a bad time. Then he goes to Minnesota, 16 and 66. Then I think that's when Flip got sick with cancer, and ultimately died. So Flip won 654 games, lost 592, 52% win percentage in the playoffs, 47 to 51, 48% win percentage. I think Flip was a better coach, man. I remember he was loved by his team for the most part, man. He was loved by his players, respected. He was very knowledgeable of the game, passionate. And as you see, he got the best out of his players when it comes to effort. And even though people think of Larry Brown when it comes to those Pistons teams, you saw how good Flip was with those Detroit Pistons teams. And you can only imagine what Flip could have did if he went to a situation where he went to a young nucleus in their prime of talent. I even want to liken Flip a little bit to like a Doc Rivers, in that he's actually a good damn coach. A lot of people look at Doc Rivers as a bad coach. I never thought he was a bad coach. I thought there were some instances where he got out-coached. But then again, it could be, now that I'm reevaluating Doc Rivers, it could be that, it's the players. Because these guys outside of Doc Rivers fuck up. They fuck up. It's not, James Harden don't just fuck up under Doc Rivers. Joel Embiid don't just fuck up under Doc Rivers. We see the Clippers, they're choke artists. Same guys. So, I don't know. So, at the end of the day, I guess I would say Flip Saunders was the better coach, man. He didn't often have much talent around him to work with, but he got the absolute most out of his players. And when I look at how talented that conference was in the West when he was at the Timberwolves, and then when he went to the East was getting stronger by the late 2000s. Although they were starting to get weak again by the early 2000 teens. But I guess I'll go with Flip, man. I think both of them are good coaches, but I think Flip has the edge. Even though he never went to an NBA Finals, the job he did with the Timberwolves and the Pistons alone, the consistency, that's enough to sway me. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think.